Good day, viewers. Welcome to a new edition of 30 Minutes, the interactive program of Trust Television with me, Manir Dan Ali. Our guest today is a Shion, if I could use that word, of one of the biggest dynasties, political dynasties in Katsina State. I'm talking of the family, the Yar'adua family. His father was the Minister of Lagos Affairs in the First Republic. One of his brothers was the second in command under the military government of Olusegun Obasanjo. I'm talking about Shehu Musa Yar'adua. And his other brother was the former president of Nigeria, Umaru Musa Yar'adua. So join me to welcome Senator Abdulaziz Musa Yar'adua to the program. Senator, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
I know you had a lot of fits and starts. That is, it wasn't easy for you, even though you come from this distinguished political family. You made many attempts, first to become governor, then to be a member of the House of Reps, before you could eventually emerge over several years now as Senator of the Federal Republic. Were you discouraged by the initial setbacks?
Not really, because like you said, coming from such a family, I've learned a lot. I grew under the late president, so I've seen so many of, such things. And Alhamdulillah, I would say we thank God. One thing I've learned was, the ability to persevere, especially lucky for me being a military officer. So when I ventured into it after the late president died, I had that in mind. First, I knew that it could not be rosy, and I also knew that it is not always success. You could go in and then you may not win. So I had all that at the back of my mind.
And even your brothers who became prominent, it wasn't easy for Shehu Musa Yar'adua.
Exactly.
In fact, he died while attempting, he died in prison after being convicted of something by the
So all those experiences gathered together helped me to shape my mind. But primarily at the back of my mind was my resolve to serve humanity, just to follow the footsteps of my late father and my late brothers. So with that resolve, I knew that one, I had to exhibit a lot of patience, knowing the kind of political system that we have. So I had that at the back of my mind. I didn't bother. I said, well, if it will take me up to the end of my life, I will keep trying. Because one, I also know power is from Allah. So if that was not the right time, I should then resign myself to fate and believe that it is not the right time. Maybe Allah doesn't want me to serve at that time. So even though I know there were a lot of faulty things that happened within the polity, but I wasn't looking at that. I was also looking at, well, if that is the way, we'll do our best. If we get there, how do we correct it?
But now you are senator, but you barely squeaked through.
Yes.
Just less than 1,000 votes.
Now 4,000 something.
Yes, between you and
I went to the tribunal.
Your opponent. Yes. How were you taking it as that knife edge kind of counting was going on, because it could have gone either way?
Yes, I think primarily because of some factors, that happened. At the time we went into the general election, when you are aware that the Naira was changed and very little time was given, so money was out of circulation.
Does it mean you didn't have money to mobilize?
No, it's not the money. What I mean was people who are suffering to change their money at that time. So that, maybe some of them had to change their mind not to even vote for my party, because they felt like it was a punishment. Some of
the ruling party was responsible.
The ruling party was responsible for that. At the same time, if you remember, there was this fuel crisis, there was no fuel, and there was this insecurity also, because personally I went to over 100 wards out of about 116. I couldn't enter some of the wards to campaign
because of insecurity.
Yeah, because of the insecurity.
But we heard that some campaigns were paying the bandits to be able to access some of the areas.
Well, not me. I don't think we did so in Katsina. We did not pay to access some areas. What we did was to, to listen and adhere to the advice of the security agencies. Where they feel we shouldn't go, we didn't go there. And where they gave advice that yes, we could go in and spend a little time and get out, we did. So we went to the wards to campaign, and those areas where the insecurity was so pronounced, we did not go there based on the advice of the security agencies.
Well, now you've been there. I mean, you've been on the seat for about 6 months. Not much has changed about the insecurity. In fact, in some areas, it has only worsened. Is that something of concern to you?
Yes, very much. In fact, if you had noticed, I've presented at least 3 bills. 3 motions, 2 on security. In fact, last week I presented a motion on the urgent need for the security agencies in the whole country, to synergize and coordinate and have some coordination among themselves. Because what I noticed personally, and a lot of us, including people like you, I'm sure, is the fact that that coordination is missing. Even if the intelligence is there, you can't have proactive action by the security forces because they are not coordinated.
But what you say you presented was a motion, and Nigerians could say, well, so much motion, very little movement.
Yeah, what we have done in the motion is when we make recommendations, we actually write to the executive to implement some of the recommendations. And we have a committee on compliance. So we follow through the recommendations. In fact, because of the motion that I raised, one of the recommendations was that we are going to invite all the head of security agencies in Nigeria to come to the Senate.
The lower house, the House of Reps, just last week, invited all these chiefs, and they didn't turn up. It was their deputies that turned up, and the House had to take a decision that they will listen to the second in command. They must get the chiefs to come.
Exactly. Maybe they had some engagements. I would presume so. But what in our own case, we're inviting not only the service chiefs, we're inviting the DG, DSS, NDLEA, all the security agencies and MDAs that are responsible for security in this country. We want to have a closed-door executive session with them, to ask them what challenges first they are facing and what they can recommend that they need. And then we, who are representative of the people, of course, will tell them the challenges our people are facing, irrespective of the insecurity and what we think needs to be done.
I will have said to the villager who is living with the bandits, to people who are getting kidnapped and have to negotiate individually on behalf of their relation, they will say they have seen all these things you're mentioning. If you recall, in the last Senate, the National Assembly, they even had a big national security summit.
Yes.
It didn't change much. So how do we expect this new initiative will change anything?
Well, I believe it will change things because the president today is aware of the security challenges we are facing in the country. So I believe this executive session might even move into the same security summit, because we have to be very serious this time around, because we cannot continue to, like you said, to have summits and then nothing comes out of it. And that's why we want to sit down, heart-to-heart, have a heart-to-heart discussion with them, with a view to now collating whatever we have done. We'll sit with the executive to let them know that there is need, to be very, very serious about the insecurity in this country. In fact, one of the things I had wanted to mention was the fact that the president ought to have, called for emergency on security rather than food security, because
actually,
if you have emergency on food security and you cannot go to the farms like it is happening now, then you can never have food security in the country.
Just yesterday, the Daily Trust did an editorial on the same subject,
yes,
saying that it's as if the president is giving more importance to the economy, to the dollar, and neglecting this essential issue of
and that
security.
is why I kept drawing attention to the issue of security, because the economy cannot grow, we cannot develop as a nation as long as the insecurity continues the way it is today. So we must sit down as a nation, including the governors. We must sit down as a nation to tell ourselves the truth. And you see, the issue of the kinetic, which we are engaging in today, sending soldiers and police to go and kill. We have to sit down as a nation and discuss the root cause of all these insecurities in the various in the various regions of the country.
But these things have been done severally.
It has been done, but it has to be, we have to take it very seriously this time.
To do it again.
Yes, because if we do it, then we have to be serious. Because I want to tell you, we have a new Senate, and the senators that I know, I think have passion and commitment for this nation. And
but it's the same Senate that okayed all the ministerial nominees
today you have
with all their problems.
Today you have
so is it any different?
You have over 70 senators that are new.
Yes, they may be new.
Yes.
But none of them has rejected the brand new cars that are being bought at 160 million. When it came to dealing with the ministerial nominees, we didn't see much thoroughness. So how different is it?
I think it is different. And the issue of screening you're talking about, I think we have done our best in the issue of screening.
How come you didn't find that one of the ministers hasn't even served, done NYSC?
Well, that is not our duty. It is the duty of the security, because usually the executive are supposed to screen their ministers before they bring them for screening to the Senate. So it is not our duty to look at the documents of somebody before he comes. What is done is that the president has to send the names of those he wants to serve with or work with to the security agencies to screen them.
But
so if they couldn't find that out, it is not our duty to do that.
But
what we do is we look at the list as sent to us by the president,
and then look for the weak points.
And we look for those areas, and we have done so in several cases.
But I can't
we have
remember,
advised the president.
Has a single person been turned down?
It's not the issue of turning down, but the president has been advised. At least 2 were turned down. You have seen it.
So to come back to the issue of security, here we are still just talking about it. And some people are saying that there's already what is called a war economy. That is, a lot of people from the security services to the bureaucrats to even the local villagers who are either informers or selling bread, food items, drugs to the bandits and other miscreants. It's a big ballooning economy, which is now even more difficult to deal with than in the earlier days if the matter had been handled differently. So how do we grapple with it now?
Yeah, that is why talking about it itself, I think, is success. Talking about the issue of security itself and bringing it to the fore for the executive to understand that we have a problem. I think talking about it itself is something.
You are a retired Lieutenant Colonel.
Yes.
And you are also chairing now the Senate Committee on Army.
Yes.
What exactly will you do? I mean, you have the insight, you have the inside track, the understanding of how the military, the army operates. You are in the signal corps. What will you do differently to make these guys sit up and do their job?
Yes, the first thing I have done as the chairman on Army is to produce a draft legislative agenda, which I have handed over to the Chief of Army Staff. We had a meeting with him last month. We had an interactive session with the Army, and at that interactive session, we gave them copies of the legislative agenda to go through and give their inputs, so that we have a working document that will, have timelines of what needs to be done, where the Army is, where it should be, where the Army should be, what the Army is doing and what it should do, so that even when we go out for oversight function, we know what we are doing. So this draft legislative agenda very soon, either by December or January, when all the inputs come in, we have even given some security experts, consultants outside the military to have a look at it and advise us, so that we have a document that will collaborate with the Army with their inputs, so that we move the Army forward in respect of their welfare, their development, the kind of weapons they should use, and how they can tackle the insecurity and bring it to the barest minimum. So this is what we have done, and we are working on that.
We'll still touch on the insecurity after we go on a short break.
Okay.
Viewers, it is 30 minutes, the interactive program of Trust Television, and our guest today is Senator Abdulaziz Musa Yar'adua, Chair of the Senate Committee on the Army. Welcome back. If you are just joining us, it is 30 minutes, the interactive program of Trust Television. And our guest today is Senator Abdulaziz Musa Yar'adua, the chair of the Senate Committee on the Army and a brother of two former prominent Nigerians, that is former President Umaru Musa Yar'adua and also former Chief of Staff, Supreme Headquarters, General Shehu Musa Yar'adua. We were talking of insecurity, and I want us to dwell on that because, as we said, even during your campaign, there are areas that you couldn't go. Even as a retired soldier, as an aspiring senator with your own retinue of security, there are no-go areas. And as we did establish earlier, the situation has grown worse in some of those areas. And we are talking about what to do. You said there is this draft agenda for the military, for the Army specifically, but all I have heard on what they need to do is more like providing them with more welfare, with more money, which former President Muhammadu Buhari did his best. A lot of trillions were spent on the military, and yet the Super Tucanos have arrived. We haven't seen much difference in what they are supposed to do. All the attack helicopters have been purchased. Many things we know is an expensive game. But what will you do different as you are on Senate in collaboration with the executive so as to make life easier and less violent prone for ordinary Nigerians?
Yes, like I said, the draft legislative agenda is aimed at, you see, if you don't develop your army in line with contemporary armies, then you don't have an army in the first place. So you must consider the welfare of the soldiers. You must also consider the kind of equipment. Today, the world is moving to artificial intelligence. We have to move towards such contemporary new, emerging platforms. So the kind of weapons you buy for them must be in line with this contemporary platform, so that the enemy you are fighting, they have the same weapons that you have. You have to have an edge somewhere so that you'll be able to beat them. Today, the army is purchasing drones. You need drones not only for reconnaissance, but you need armed drones that you can use to even kill the enemy, like it is done outside, without even one of your soldiers getting in contact with the enemy.
But many years ago, we were told that the army have developed their own drone called Gulma, but the Gulma doesn't appear to have had much effect on the bandits. It is having effect.
It is just that these are security issues that are not mentioned on television, but to come out and say this is what Gulma has done. Because things like that, you don't mention them as you know.
But how do you know their effectiveness? Because at least we know the Iranian drones, what they can do, the Turkish drones, what they can do. So the Nigerian drones, have they been able to locate where Turji is? Can they go and finish him up? Or is it any of the other well-known bandits that are giving notice to people?
They are working on that. In fact, I think this other head of the bandits was just missed by the whiskers about 2-3 weeks ago with the same platform we are talking about. But almost half of his family were killed using the same Air Force and the Gulmo we are talking about. So the issue is we have to develop our army and our armed forces to be able to protect the integrity, territorial integrity of this country. Let me start by saying that, like I said, what we have been doing all along has been the kinetic approach to the insecurity. The non-kinetic approach, which is what we want to push for the executive to implement, is what will, complement the kinetic.
What does it, entail?
It entails, going back to the root cause of this insecurity that we have. What brought about the insecurity? That is what both the state governments, local, state, and federal governments need to do, to find out what do you do to prevent such. Because no matter how you use the kinetic, no matter how the soldiers kill these bandits, the same problem will arise again.
Part of your non-kinetic approach, does it include negotiating with the bandits because it's one sore point in the eye of the public?
No, I don't think that will be part of the non-kinetic for now. Usually negotiations are done, from a position of strength and not from a position of weakness. And this had been demonstrated by the late president when he pardoned the militants
in the Niger Delta.
In the Niger Delta. If you remember, the army moved in against them very strongly. To that extent, they had to come and say, okay, they want to surrender their weapons. What can the government do for them? So if the government will negotiate at all, I think they should negotiate from a position of strength. While we fight the bandits, let them by themselves ask for, negotiation.
But why is it that there is no coordination in this fight? It's one Federal Republic of Nigeria, but we will see that in one small corner, maybe in Zamfara, the bandits are pushed. They now move to Katsina and Kaduna, and then when they are pushed there, they move to Niger. And now we are hearing of these bandits in some areas of Bauchi State, around Ningi and what have you. So they seem just to be spreading.
Yes, that's what that was the motion I raised last week. And I just spoke about it at the beginning of this interview, that lack of coordination between the security forces is what is responsible for what is happening today. The DSS could get all the intelligence required, but because that coordination is not there, you saw what happened at Kuje prison some years back.
When it was attacked.
It was attacked. The intelligence was out a week before the time, but because that coordination is not there, and that synergy is not there, one of the reasons is that there are so many overlapping mandates within the acts of the security agencies. And this is one area I intend to look at, the act setting up all the security agencies so that we find, we single out those mandates that are overlapping and, try to make amendments through bills.
But how do you deal with the self-interest of the officials when they will hide behind these laws and do something else, in some instances maybe even compromise with the bandits or the criminals, and they are getting some big benefits, will they listen to you?
Of course they will, because whatever we are going to do is in the interest of the nation. And we have laws that deal with prosecute. There are laws that will prosecute such offenders, and those are the areas that we want to make sure, we concentrate on, because once people are not punished, they continue to do the same thing, and others will copy them. So those are the areas we want to concentrate. The issue of the overlapping mandate, the issue of coordination. In fact, we suggested the need for the police to set up a command and control center in all the states of the Federation. This is done everywhere in, in advanced climes like the United States. That is why if you look at their layer of security, you'll see that within minutes or even a few minutes of any happening, any insecurity, you will see the response. The response is so swift. I can give you an example. When I traveled to the United States in 1991, I was in a hotel, and some students came. I think one of them just touched this emergency bell. We were all told to come out of the hotel. By the time I got out, the fire service, about over 10 of their vehicles have surrounded the hotel within 5 minutes.
But now here, villagers will even be calling security people that we are under attack, and nobody will come. They only come afterwards.
So that is the issue. It's all about coordination. So we are suggesting the need for the police to set up a command and control center where all the security agencies will have personnel, so that if any information or intelligence comes, everybody is aware. And I also suggested the need for all the security agencies to begin to have a joint training, because that is also an aspect that is missing.
Our time is finishing, and I want you to touch in maybe 30 seconds the electoral reform you are hinting that may be in the offing, because there have been efforts in the past, the Ways report and all of that, when your brother Yar'adua was president, admitted the flaws of the election that brought him, and then set about the reforms. And those reforms appear to be stymied. What exactly is going to happen in this current legislature?
Yes, we had a retreat just last week in Lagos, and we kick-started the issue of the electoral reforms. And one of the suggestions made was they need to have, a national summit too, bringing all, key players in the democratic system of the country, so that we sit down and look at our electoral laws very well. And we have already identified, we know where the challenges are. The issue of the selection process in our electoral reforms, the issue of the parties not doing the right thing, and so on and so forth. And we have even gone to the extent of, and I know, that INEC is just a neutral body. And INEC shouldn't be that way. You must have, there is no way that the political parties will just want to, bake their cake and then eat it. And this is precisely what is happening.
So I think on this point, we must end this edition of the program. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much, my very good friend.
Viewers, that is the end of this edition of 30 Minutes. Keep a date with us.